Hey guys, welcome to an all-new Collection Expansion Extravaganza right here on ToyWorldOrder.com with me, Duvall, and my wife, Carrie Duvall. Or as Puppet Duvall likes to refer to as the Fire Hair.
Yeah, Puppet Duvall will probably get punched this week when he shows up.
Well, I mean, he lives in the closet. You just gotta go upstairs, knock on the door, and wait for him to open and punch him in the face. There's that.
Okay.
Just be like, he'll be like, me mooping.
I'll me moop you.
See? Carrie knows what's up. She knows how to handle Puppet Duvall. We got some great stuff for you this time, gang. We got some fun stuff, and as always, we'll start off on this side of the room with Carrie's cute stuff. I need a little intro video. Carrie's cute stuff. Carrie's cute stuff. It will melt your heart.
Well, we got the Crazy Kermit game.
This was kind of neat because we found it at a Goodwill up in St. Louis, and this is interesting to me.
I touch my toys and you touch yours.
I want you to show them the back.
Okay.
Of the box. The back of the box, actually, this was marketed during the Muppets Tonight show when it was out, and it's probably one of the very few items that was marketed during that period of time because that show did not last long. It was basically the new version of the Muppet Show, except Kermit wasn't the host. It was Clifford, who was the big purple-haired Rastafarian there on the back there. Clifford was the host, so they kind of ruined their format by having Kermit as an afterthought, basically, most episodes, and Clifford did the whole thing. They introduced some new characters in the show. It just wasn't successful, and it's not well remembered. So there's very little merchandise from Muppets Tonight, and this is one of those things, the Crazy Kermit game. And basically, you're just basically trying to match up the borders in order to win the game. There's not a lot to the game, but
no,
it is, like I said, one of the few items that was merchandised during that period of time for that show, since that show really didn't even make it through the entire first season.
Stumped for the solution mill, $1. The name of the puzzle and a self-addressed stamped envelope, 2, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there's only one way to do this, and it's not so much as it's a game as it is a personal kind of puzzle. Basically, arrange your puzzle cards until...
I may have to put this over here and try that later.
There you go.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, Carrie may have to play that one. What's next?
Well, staying with the Muppets, this little puzzle here.
This
came in a lot of a bunch of other stuff.
The last episode we talked about the Super Go-Bots, and this was in that. Actually, this was in one of the bins in that lot, and it was just kind of like, oh well, I guess we want this.
Just a random leftover piece. They were like, well, let's just throw this in there with that.
And it's a very vintage puzzle in the fact that the Big Bird up here, even though these are kind of funky, but Big Bird's on there. Franklin is on there. Franklin D. Roosevelt, who is a character they stopped using pretty much as soon as they started using.
There's like no information on here at all.
There's not. It is a classic. Looks like the artist Jack Davies, who did a number of Sesame Street things, but it is a vintage. It's a cardboard puzzle. If you just pop it there and then pop it together, it stays together pretty well. Yeah. And again, we don't buy puzzles that often like this, but we do purchase vintage ones when we find them like this because eventually Carrie and I's goal is to frame these. It's a goal. I didn't say it was going to happen. It's a goal. It's a goal because every time we go to the store, we forget to measure stuff to take things to look for. So
it's not so much that, it's like we can frame it, but then where are we going to hang it?
I want to hang. I want the hallway upstairs towards the back rooms to be. You know, we've got some family pictures, but there's nothing on those walls, and I just like a whole wall of really cool vintage pieces like that. In the hallway. Yeah.
In the upstairs.
Yeah.
No toy-related items upstairs.
Long story short, ladies and gentlemen, there is going to come a time very soon when toys are going to have to make their way upstairs, and they're going to be my toys. They're going to be her toys.
Next, we have Color Forms playset.
Sesame Street, again, keeping it with the Muppet stuff. You can tell Carrie and I really like the Muppets and really love the stuff that Jim Henson created. And this is one of the later color form creations because of the way the pieces are arranged.
Well, I guess you could hold it.
The older color form pieces, they would be half of this. They'd be two halves. They'd be connected to this. They'd be these really hard plastic things. These are, this was 86, so it was a little later in the run of the color forms. They started to change the way they did things. So they would put the pieces on paper like this rather than the hard boards they were on originally. So, but it's all there. Yeah, it's all there. The little play guide that this would have came with was not there, but they're all in good condition. The board's in good condition, and again, color forms is not something we set out to collect. It's just something we have literally stumbled into as we've collecting, that we find stuff and go, well, it's $2 and they're all here.
Yeah.
Why not? Pretty much. Now, we have talked about how Carrie was going to focus her Disney fixation to a degree on DeCon, or stuffed animals, and it was on DeCon figures, and that hasn't lasted. But there is something with DeCon that has lasted, in the fact that we're still finding these classic vinyl DeCon figures, and these, of course, range from the late 60s through the late 70s is when DeCon was, when these were at their height. You need to get the magic eraser. Yeah, they need cleaned up a little bit. We did find, this one is one of my favorites. This one is actually Wile E. Coyote, and it's a very classic DeCon, very soft rubber head, hard plastic body. Everything on him moves. The tail moves, the legs move, of course the arms move, the head moves. Very cool. DeCon stuff is really cool. If you can find this vinyl DeCon stuff, we have a bunch of Disney stuff like this. We have these Warner Brother ones. DeCon is a really fun company to collect if you're looking for something to collect that's not too terribly hard to come by. Are these vinyl DeCon creations?
Super expensive. I think we paid $4 for that.
Paid like $4 or $5 for him.
And this one was probably the same.
Yeah, some of them get a little expensive, but they're not terrible prices. But they're fun display items to kind of pick up and find. If you can find them, pick them up because they are really cool. So we found Wile E. Coyote, and then we found Porky Pig.
Here, you can hold him and talk about him.
Of course, Porky has his hat. The hat's usually missing on these because they were just glued. He's got his little vest on, both his tie and his dress coat. These are always gone usually when you find them. And the tag is still here, which is really cool. I love these old DeCon figures. I love that. Let's see, this was 1968 was Porky. So
wow.
Yeah, so they do tend to go back a little ways in the 60s up through the 80s. So DeCon is still around today and to some degree. They don't do stuff like this anymore, which is a shame because these are really cool, and it really is a shame they don't do these anymore. But because vinyl is actually cheaper in some degrees than plastic in some areas. So, but really cute, really cool. Yeah, they need a little cleaned up, but they're in really good condition. And again, not something we were seeking after collecting, but something we keep finding, and they're in good shape and they're for a good price, and we bring them home. That's how it goes. That's how it runs. This is actually interesting because we have a number of these, and Carrie can never remember what exactly they are.
Well, because the ones that we have are out of the box.
Right.
So they just look like little figures.
Right. This we picked up our buddy at our friend JR's Mini Mall, and we were in the back digging through some stuff and just happened to come across these in a box. And I was like, "What do you want for these?" And he's like, "I don't know. What do you want to give me?" And I was like, "Oh, $4 or $5." He's like, "Yeah, all right." Tomy in Japan actually did a whole line of these for a number of years called Disney's Magical Collection. And what these are highly detailed, pretty posable, accurate representations of Disney characters in this 3D genre of toys. Usually based on classic scenes or moments from Disney shorts or Disney films. And this one is called Canine Caddy, and it's one from one of the classic cartoons of Pluto and Mickey, where Pluto was basically Mickey's caddy. So he comes with Mickey's golf bag and some golf clubs and such. Really cute, really neat. Mm-hmm. These were really cool because on this you can actually he can actually hold the golf club in his mouth, or they can go in the golf bag. Of course, it can go over, but he's posable. His tail moves, his arms move, his head can move left and right. Are we going to open that? Not right now, but will we? No, we will open it. Yeah, okay. And his ears are posable. His ears can move up and down. We've got a bunch of these. I've got the Ariel from Little Mermaid. I've got Woody from Toy Story, Snow White, Cinderella, Jafar, Winnie the Pooh. I've got a number of them.
Cool.
So, and these are really cool. They're really hard to find nowadays, though. They've shot up in price. And they're really expensive now, a lot of them. So, but it was a cool line. This would have been early. I don't know if I can even read the date on this, if it's there. I know that these would have been before you and I were together, but when we knew each other, these would have been early 2000s. So it would have been around 2001, 2002 when these first started popping up, and I think they went up to like 2000. Probably the year we got married is when they stopped, when they just petered off. So very cool to watch.
Sticking with Pluto.
Yep, sticking with Pluto and sticking with Disney. We've showed off a couple of these, I think both in Flea Market Finds, as well as in this version of Flea Market Finds, Collection Expansion Extravaganza. These were ceramic, hand-painted Disney characters. There are many different variations on these characters because they would paint them differently each time.
Yeah,
Usually,
so we have like 2 different minis.
We have 2 minis, 2 Mickeys, Goofy, and Pluto. Pluto was about the only one you could always find that was the same because you can't really do a whole lot of different things with Pluto. A couple of nicks and scratches on them. These are really hard to find. They're usually signed in here by the artist that painted them. These are licensed. They were licensed Disney items. You could buy these. I don't remember where these were sold. I know they were not very commonly found. Goofy is pretty nicely done. You can see there's you can't see it on camera, but there's a copyright that was written into the mold for these when they would when they would turn them. But there's a number, like I'm sure there's a Goofy in his classic colors in this outfit, and then this Goofy here. These are, again, something else we weren't thinking about collecting. We weren't hunting after. We stumbled onto the 2 Mickeys and the Minnie, and then another Minnie, and then we stumbled onto these.
I think we had the Minnie and the Mickey, and then we were looking online just to see like what it was, and then we realized that they made these other ones. So then when we saw them, we knew what they were. And
I think all we're missing is Donald. There's a Donald out of this set that we do not have, and we are missing Donald. One day we'll come across Donald, we found Pluto, and then a couple weeks later we found Goofy at just a random side of the road antique mall kind of thrift store. We were walking through, and I was like, oh, well, there's a Goofy, oh, there's a Pluto, kind of thing. So we stumbled across them when we don't think we're going to stumble across them, which is pretty crazy. Continuing on with the Goofy.
Sorry.
This came from an estate sale in St. Louis that we went to. Another one of the ones we went to earlier this year in 2014 that we got up super early to and drove to. But they had all these lunch boxes, and when we got there, she had told me on the phone that the lunch boxes, the metal ones were all $5, the plastic ones were all $2. Didn't matter if they had thermoses or not. The people that owned them just wanted to get rid of them, and we loaded the poop up.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
think
tell
we
you
bought
what.
like 7 or 8.
Well, we bought like 10. I think 10 or 11 altogether. But this was one that we saw that we desperately wanted because Carrie doesn't have a Goofy lunchbox, and this metal lunchbox for Sport Goofy is pretty neat. This would have been, probably before '86. Right around that time, because they stopped making metal lunchboxes around 88, 89.
He's playing tennis on the front and basketball and soccer on the back.
I had a sneeze coming on. I was like, had to fight it off. I apologize. And it's really cool. And of course, the thermos is here. One side of the thermos, the actual, it's kind of beat up. It's kind of been pulled through the rocks, but it does have the thermos, and that's a plus, even if it is a little beat up. The actual lunchbox
it's
itself,
not too bad for
being a metal lunchbox. It's in pretty good shape. It's in pretty decent shape. But that was one that Carrie was like, I want that. I must have that. And I was like,
I never say that. I never say must have. Get Along Gang.
Again, Get Along Gang.
No thermos.
But we talked about the Get Along Gang stuff in the first, couple episodes back, and of course behind us is the Get Along Gang caboose in the set. Get Along Gang is one of those lines that is really cool. It was an American Greetings Corporation creation in the 80s. They invented a lot of these. Rainbow Bright was one of them. They were labeled under those characters from Cleveland, and they made a number of these. Shirt Tails, Care Bears, all came from this same company. From the same umbrella they were trying to create these licenses, and in the 80s it was a big deal, so they just kept pumping them out. Get Along Gang was one of those creations, and it did really well when it was around. It really sold well. It was very popular for a long time, and very cute. There's a lot of course, the lunchboxes are harder to find. You don't see these very often. But then there's, of course, the stuffed characters that we've got a couple of them. I think we got a Monty Moose. And they all came with roller skates, but of course the roller skates are always missing. But really cute stuffed animals. So Get Along Gang is a really neat license to kind of poke around and see what's out there, because there's some really cool stuff out there. Especially, I know we might have showed these, but these are some of my favorites. Are the dress up pals. Which are the dress-up kids, which are these posable little dress-up characters for Get Along Gang, and they had a number of playsets. Like they had the soda shop playset for Get Along Gang for the kids, which was kind of neat. So those were some of the interesting things out there for Get Along Gang that you can find. I got some books here.
We have a lot of Disney stuff this episode.
We do.
Sorry.
It's kind of it's been building up a little while, but we'll try to skip those for a second. Found some books at Goodwill. Goodwill's always a good place to look through kids' books. You never know quite what you're going to find, but I found one and I was like, oh, I got to have that, even though everyone's going to be like, why? I'm like, because. And it's
it's devolved.
It's the official movie book for the Flintstones movie, starring John Goodman and Rosie O'Donnell. It's good. It was an alright movie. It was not that great, but the book is really cool because it's got a lot of stills from the movie. It's got a little behind the scenes information here, showing you how they did certain things. It's pretty cool.
I haven't seen that movie in years. Yeah. Is that Brendan Fraser?
No, it's not Brendan Fraser. I don't remember his name. Dave would have.
Oh, sorry, you're right. I'm not wearing my glasses. Yep. Yeah, that's like a British actor.
Yep, and then
here we go. Rick Moranis is in it. Elizabeth Perkins. It doesn't say that guy's name.
Rosie O'Donnell, Elizabeth Taylor, Sharon Stone, or not Sharon Stone, but Halle Berry's in it as Sherry I think.
I don't know if I've ever seen this movie, to be honest with you.
I got it on DVD. We should watch it sometime. It's actually not a bad movie. It's actually kind of cute. You would like it. It's pretty cute.
Cool.
But it's not just a storybook of the movie. It's also a lot of behind the scenes stuff, which is something they never really did for this film. I know. Carrie and I've had a long week, guys. We're stupid tired. We apologize. So you're not boring us. We're boring ourselves, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking through this. I don't know if I've seen all this movie.
But the reason I wanted it, though, was specifically for all the behind-the-scenes shots.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to show you, like, how they made them, how they...
like the Brontosaurus here is the animatronic head, and then there's the crew back here with... Richard Mole actually is on top of that. Richard Mole from Night Court Bull is actually in the movie, and that's who's pictured in this shot here.
Right on top. Stuff like that, like behind the scenes.
I love it. I wish they made like a whole documentary on the making of this film, because the amount of stuff they did, physical effects, CGI, and animatronics and everything for this film is pretty amazing. So that's why I love the movie, because there's just a lot to it. Next thing we found was something that actually is a little newer. This came out. It's not licensed. It is an unlicensed book, which is funny because I don't really see a lot of these anymore. This came out in 2006.
How do you know it's not licensed?
Because it specifically says this book is not sponsored, endorsed, or otherwise affiliated with any of the companies or products featured in this book.
I guess that would.
But it's a Transformers book, and it's called The Fantasy, the Fun, and the Future. And it came out right before the film came out. And there's just a lot of stuff in here. There's like there's shots of like the classic toys and really cool poses. There's information on the characters that at the time were revealed were going to be in the movie. So this came out before the first live-action movie. There's stuff in here about BotCon, about Beast Wars, about the different Transformers iterations. This is a really cool book, and I was like, it's not licensed, but man, do I want to buy that and read it, because it's cool. I love books like these, too, that kind of put together by the fandom and get out there, and Hasbro never does anything about it. But very, very cool book. Next up on some of the Disney books, we found a number of classic Disney items that are pretty cool, and the first one we'll talk about is we found an album. I'm not sure where I found this at, but it's the official album of Disneyland or Walt Disney World, and it's basically just songs of items from the park. And of course, it is an LP. It's a record, which is really cool. But I love the cover, because the cover is the original Main Street Electrical Parade, which is pretty cool. Which is on here. It's a Small World is on here. The Haunted Mansion's on here. America Sings. The Hall of Presidents Mr. Lincoln's Speech is on here. Country Bear Jamboree. The Enchanted Tiki Room. The back of it, of course, this was a classic item released by Disneyland Records. This would have been released in probably, since it's the Main Street Electrical Parade, probably the 70s. I want to say is when this came out. Mid 70s is when this showed up. So very cool though. I love these old records like this that have the music from the parks. That's really cool. It's always really cool to have. So that's pretty cool. Keeping with the classic vintage Disneyland stuff, something I found. This was from the opening of, I want to say this was first printing June 1991, and I love books like this. This was the actual souvenir guide for the opening of Disney MGM Studios theme park. This was something you could buy for the first couple of years at MGM. It's probably until they sold out. But it's interesting because there's so much in here that isn't at what is now Hollywood Studios. Of course, the magic of Disney animation doesn't exist in this form anymore. You used to be able to go in and actually see a working animation studio in effect, and you can't do that anymore there because, well, feature animation is dead pretty much. Stuff like anyone that's ever been to the parks has seen the Hollywood Bowl where they do Beauty and the Beast on stage. The original production of that was the Disney classics where they had like coattails and stuff, and they sang Hollywood songs. That was in that theater originally. I'm trying to find some other stuff here that was pretty interesting. Like the backstage studio tour, some of that's not there anymore, and the special effects workshop, that doesn't exist anymore because they're using stuff from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That doesn't exist in that format anymore. The water effects tank is still there, but not like this. It's more used now for it's supposed to be like Pearl Harbor, I think, is what they're still using. The Monster Sound Show and Superstar Television, that stuff doesn't exist anymore. So these books are always cool to see kind of the stuff that used to be that are no more. And I love books like these. I love finding books like these. I think we paid $4 for this. I'll buy these anytime we find them.
Because you have quite a collection of old Disney books.
I have quite an expansive collection. Speaking of going on with that, this is a pictorial souvenir guide to Disneyland, actually. And of course, with Walt on the cover, you know that it's around that era. These are always really well done. This would have been, this was the cover photograph on here is 63, so I'm guessing it's probably in the 60s when this came out. But the shots of Disneyland back then are beautiful. These books are just gorgeous to look at, to see the parks as they appeared back then, because there's Frontierland when it, around the first maybe 10 years that the park was in existence, and now that you can think that park's 50 years old, over 50 years old. So it's pretty cool to see, these old books, the Skyway that doesn't exist anymore, just the different things that they don't exist anymore, which these books are just an amazing look back in time.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a good look at the history and how far they've come.
And then this last one is something we've been looking for forever. And
you have.
I have. And we've hunted and hunted and hunted. This magazine was around through the 70s. It doesn't exist anymore at all. But it was a magazine called Look. And April 6, 1971, they actually printed a story on Disney World. And Mickey Mouse, one of the old Mickey Mouse covers. Of course, it was on the cover. And of course, what's great about these old magazines is the fact that some of the ads in them, like you won't see Pall Mall cigarette ads anymore on magazines.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
You've been looking for this magazine since we've been together, I think.
Oh God, yeah.
And of course, we could have bought it on eBay.
Yes.
But that kind of takes the fun out of it. But we found this at an antique mall, hidden under a bunch of other magazines.
Yes.
I was digging only because I saw a bunch of stuff that said Sears, and he likes those old Sears toy books. And then this was just hiding underneath it, and I'm like, nuh-uh.
Yeah. This would have come out before the opening of Walt Disney World. And what's cool about this is there's a shot, and I don't think you can make it out very well, but the shot down here is they set it up. The park's not even done. There's not even grass on the ground. There's still construction equipment behind all these people that they've staged to take this picture, so they had pictures for this article. It's another one of those articles. They basically talk about the future of Florida with Walt Disney World coming in, and the different things that they're doing with Walt Disney World. So there is some interesting stuff in this article. And a very cool magazine, though. Carrie it was pretty cool for Carrie to find that. All right. Moving on to action figures. Yay! Carrie goes to sleep now.
Yeah, because I don't. Well, I do know what some of these. You got Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure what the rest of them are.
Keeping up with the Transformer stuff, I doubt I'll ever transform him again out of his Tyrannosaurus mode, but this is actually I believe this is the original Beast Wars Megatron that was out for Transformers. And not a great robot mode, but the dinosaur mode's pretty cool. And the fact that, his mouth opens and this was actually one of those lines that actually isn't from Hasbro. This was actually done by Kenner after Hasbro acquired Kenner. They weren't doing a whole lot with the Transformers license. Beast Wars was on the horizon. They kind of gave the license to Kenner to see what would happen, and Kenner produced Beast Wars toys. And they did really well, which is a story for another day because there's stories behind that. But the Beast Wars Megatron is pretty cool. I love the dinosaur mode. This will probably be the mode that he's in on the shelf. Maybe I'll transform, maybe I won't, I don't know. But transformed, it's not a great looking robot. You'll see a picture of him. I don't think it's a great looking robot. He was missing, he's supposed to have little missiles that go in his legs here, that like the sides here that swing down that are missile launchers, they were missing. But other than that, he's all there, and I couldn't be happier because I did not have. I had very few Beast Wars figures, and Megatron is really cool. What's the matter over there? Look, look, look. What's wrong, Carrie? Why so sad? Can I help you with something?
Yeah. Get out of my face.
Aww.
Give me some more goofy stuff.
What?
What's all this other stuff?
Alright. Moving on. I found, I love finding, I don't collect a lot of vintage Ninja Turtles figures. There are a lot of collectors out there that love Ninja Turtles. I love Ninja Turtles. It's not something I really want to collect because there's just way too much of it. And some of it is a little hefty in price. But I did happen to find a Casey Jones and his hockey stick. I'm sure I'll find the other pieces eventually because there weren't a whole lot. There was a bag and a bat, and I think there was one other item. But
is this Ninja Turtles?
No, I'll get to that in a second. Vintage Casey Jones is pretty cool. I love the vintage line. This was one of the figures I had when I was a kid, so that's pretty cool. I usually just buy the stuff Turtles-wise that I actually had, which is pretty cool. This actually is Warriors of Virtue. And this, I can't remember.
Supposed to stand on something?
Can't remember who, no, I can't remember what the company was. IJL Creations, and it was some weird toy company made these. It was a very large line, though, very, very large. There were a ton of figures in this line. This was the female Rue, one of the heroes, one of the Warriors of Virtue. She's missing. She had a hoop she came with, but she's got a little bag.
Was that a cartoon or a show?
No, it was a live-action movie.
Oh.
It was. I've got it on VHS. I think I never came out on DVD. But it's a very funky movie and it's very weird. There was the toy line consisted of like 25 characters. I probably over exaggerating.
What is it?
She's a kangaroo.
Oh, kangaroo. Okay.
Yeah. A little known fact: they did a sequel to Warriors of Virtue, where since they didn't have the budget to do the animatronics, they basically wrote the story that all the Roos eventually evolved and became human. Which took away all the cool thing of that film, the fact that you had kung fu fighting kangaroos, took it all away. Like now they're just human.
Where's her pouch?
But she had a little hoop that came with that it's missing. But you don't see Warriors of Virtue figures very often anyway, so very cool to have. Next up,
that was.
Yeah. Next up is a classic WWE Hasbro, actually WWF Hasbro figure. I know, right? You're not supposed to say that anymore, apparently. But Andre the Giant, the late great, the first entrant into the WWE Hall of Fame, Andre the Giant.
They have they do a match at WrestleMania on him.
They do now, yes. Just this year, they started the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal tournament. But Andre, this figure's great because you can put a figure in his hands and then pull him back, and he basically would throw the figures out over the way like that. So I love the old Hasbro WWF line. I think it's probably one of the coolest wrestling lines ever made. Yes, today's wrestling figures look just like the superstars, but these were great because they really captured the essence of what the WWF was in the 80s and 90s. Was this very, the early 90s at least, was this very cartoony, characterized situation, soap opera for men, and these figures captured these characters perfectly. You can look at some of the old WWE figures and go, who is that? But if you look at a Hasbro WWF figure, you can tell right away that's Andre the Giant, or Shawn Michaels, or Bret the Hitman Hart. All of them. Carrie's going to excuse herself for a moment because the dogs are outside barking, so she's going to go let them in real quick. But again, I love the old love the old Hasbro WWF stuff. It's really cool. I'll save those three for later. I got something here. Somebody had asked me a question if I would review this line, and I'm trying to acquire the rest of the figures in the last few vehicles I need. But Kenner did a line based on the Alec Baldwin film The Shadow, which in turn was based on the classic radio star and radio show The Shadow. And they actually did a bunch of figures, and I found the Lightning Draw Shadow figure. Who's very cool. Of course, both his guns, you hit a button on his back and he'll, fling, or you squeeze his legs together actually, and he'll, throw his guns up in the air, and he's got a little light piping on the top of his head to make his eyes glow, which is pretty cool. All the figures in this line, again, it's not one of those lines that was really sought after or really well loved, but it's got some really cool characters and some really cool Kenner creations, and I love old Kenner stuff. This stuff's really neat. I've got a number of things. I've got like the Shadow Thunder Cab. I've got the Shiwan Khan Serpent Bike. I've got Battle Shiwan Khan. I've got this Shadow. I've got the Transforming Lamont Cranston with the Snap-on Shadow Armor. It's just a matter of tracking down the few other figures and a couple other vehicles I need out of this, and they're not that expensive. They're not that hard to find. And of course, you guys know me. I buy this stuff mint on card when I can find it, and I open it. I know, scary, right? Make some people cry. But it's funny because this was $1.99, and it looks like it was a Big Lots tag at one point. These were in Big Lots, so for $2. But this would have been '94, so the year before I graduated high school. But yeah, I paid like $4 for this Shadow, so you can't beat that. It's a cool line. Next up is a line from Mattel, a line based on a movie that didn't do really well, and the toy line didn't do well, but there were some really cool imaginative toys released for this line, and this is actually the Hook Lost Boy Strike Tank. Hey, welcome back. How are you? You missed me. You want me to talk about the Shadow again? No? Okay. The Mattel Hook Lost Boy Strike Tank. This is really cool. I've got the Boys Attack Rep, which I think we've shown on a separate episode. This line again is not one of those well-loved lines. It didn't do well, but it has some very imaginative creations, imaginative sculpts, imaginative vehicles. Some really cool items were released for this line. So this is going to get open, and it is going to get put together. Just because I like to display this stuff with the character, with the figures themselves. So very cool. Last few action figure things before we look at a couple of board games. Anyway, we've talked a lot about Kenner stuff over the mini episodes. Of course, the Shadow Kenner line, Beast Wars Kenner line. One of the earliest ones though was that's well known as Kenner Superpowers, based on the DC Comics characters. And I got a trio of Superpowers characters from a friend on Facebook. And unfortunately, a couple of them don't have their weapons or accessories, but I got Green Arrow, and of course these were great because when you squeeze Green Arrow's legs, if he had his bow and his arrow, he would raise his bow and his arrow to fire. And he's got a little place back here where you can put the arrow at to store it. But so I got Green Arrow, very cool figure. I got Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was neat. She just had like a gold piece of rope. But do you know? You probably don't know, but the Linda Carter series for Wonder Woman, she used to have the bracelets.
Yes.
She would block bullets.
Yes.
Check this out. She actually recreates that action where she blocks the bullets with her bracelets. It's kind of neat, actually. It's cool that they built that into this toy.
Yeah.
And then I found Hawkman. And Hawkman actually is complete. He has his mace. He was the only one out of that group that actually was complete, but you squeeze Hawkman's legs, and his wings flat. Flap, 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 flap. The Superpowers line is really cool. It's really collectible. It's one of those lines that is really well sought after, complete. There are a number of characters that they only made overseas that are really hard to find. So it's one of those 80s lines that becomes harder and harder to find as time goes on. And those are actually the only 3 figures out of that line that I own. I might get some more down the road if I can find them for affordable. But the great thing is something we haven't talked about is Robin Hood figures. And the Robin Hood figures from Kenner actually share a lot of the bodies and a lot of the different detailing off these molds for these figures. Like the Green Arrow body was actually Robin Hood's body. Hawkman's body is actually the body for the, I believe, Little John or the Dark Warrior. I think it's the Dark Warrior, with a different head, different arms and such. But and again, Kenner liked to reuse body types, and that's what happened. So, got a couple board games here for you before we wrap this episode up. I believe just 2 this episode. Yeah, both Star Wars games, both really cool. Both vintage games. This one is actually a Kenner game. It is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, the Yoda Master game. Very, very simple game. I believe this was for ages 8 and up. It's a very easy game to play, but the box artwork is beautiful for this game. It's really cool. There was basically be the first player to become a Jedi Knight, defeat the dark side of the Force, and win is the basic idea of the game. And I love the board for this game because the board itself is so darn neat. The fact that it's just a board with Yoda's head, basically. You're traversing around Yoda's head. I love these old Kenner games, though. They're really, really cool. Especially the Star Wars stuff. The Star Wars stuff is pretty well sought after and pretty hard to find. We actually found these at the same estate sale we found all the lunchboxes at it. That estate sale had tons of these games, and I had most of them, but I didn't have the Star Wars one, so we picked them up. The other one, the next one is actually the original, the vintage from 77, the Star Wars Escape from the Death Star game that came out when the first film came out.
You guys should have done one of these and aired it on May the 4th.
May the 4th. I always forget about May the 4th. We got some ideas for next year's May the 4th, though. We're kind of worried about getting the second season up and running.
I know, but you could have done this.
This is cool. The game board's really cool because it is just the, you know, kind of the Death Star battle and whatnot. Some pretty neat things to it.
Don't mind me. Just
okay. I love the old Star Wars games like this. Carrie's looking for the playing pieces because
they're the same.
Well, no, the Yoda one is just Luke, and then this one is like
it's the same.
Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie.
Okay, I just happened to see that they're kind of pretty much the same.
Yeah, they are. They were the same idea.
That's all.
That's all.
Yeah, I just.
My
when
wife.
you opened that one, I saw what they looked like, and then I opened
gotcha.
this one, and I'm like, they look exactly the same.
They look exactly the same. I love these old.
Did you show the board?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I love the old Kenner games. They're really, really cool and really great. And of course, Star Wars is pretty much timeless at this point. So they're really worth kind of tracking down and finding if you can find them in good shape and pretty complete. This one's a little dirty. The board, the box is a little dirty, but as long as all the pieces are there, I don't usually care that much. But there you go, gang. That's going to bring us to the end of this episode of Collection Expansion Extravaganza. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/ToyWorldOrder. Hit subscribe. It helps us out greatly. As well as to check out all the board games and all the crazy antics of myself, Pixel Dan, Puppet Duvall, and all the great guest stars that stop by. Check out Board. You can go to youtube.com/Board the show and hit subscribe. It helps both of us out greatly. Help Toy World Order, help Board out. Really, really get the word out there for these great shows that we're doing. So, and until next time, gang, we'll be back. And as always, remember, keep digging because you never quite know what you'll find. Take care, gang.